Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Welcome on to Hot Conversations with Jeauninè. If you would come in, speak, and share the live, if you will. I have another great one tonight. I have another great topic tonight, and we want to discuss this with you all. So come on in, join us tonight, share the live, speak as you're coming in. Good evening, Sean. How are you? Thanks for joining us tonight. Hi, Mother Parker. How are you? Hi, Nina. Love you all. Thanks for joining tonight. If you can, call your family and your friends and tell them to jump on. This is a family conversation again tonight about a topic that has been pressing on me for some time to talk about. And this is not going to be just one session. There will be a continuance of this conversation because there are different avenues, different parts of the conversation tonight. So welcome to Hot Conversations with Jeauninè. Thank you all again for joining. Again, if you would share, we're going to jump right into the live tonight. Of course, Hot Conversations is my life coach program. I am your accountability coach, and it is my mission to embrace, to encourage, to enlighten, to empower, and to educate men and women to be the best versions of themselves. And today is one of those conversations that I want to have. So tonight, I do have my family joining me tonight for our conversation. As I labeled my live today, it was about the importance and the necessity of family conversations. And so I want to talk about that tonight. But as you're coming in again, please love, like, Share the live. For me, this is an important message that I want to get out to everyone. This is a moment of empowering and educating, uplifting and loving on, never to be offensive in any kind of way, but to educate some things that is normally not talked about. So please join me. And for all of those who will be watching later on, you can catch me on Heart Conversations with Jeauninè on Facebook, Instagram. Hi, Lady Walker. How are you? Catch me on Instagram. Also new, I'm on YouTube now, and it's at Just Jeauninè, JustJeauninA. So you can reach out on or look for this live and many lives to come, either on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. TikTok will be coming shortly. So I have my family on again with me tonight. If you would please join me in welcoming the best parents ever, Lady Boyce and Bishop Reginald Boyce, Mr. and Mrs. Boyce. Hi, Dad.
God bless you. She's behind me.
Ma, what's happening? Welcome, my parents, everyone.
Getting some coffee.
I get it. For a conversation, that's how we do. Sean, yes, TikTok. I'm starting over in TikTok, but I'm definitely going to bring this over to TikTok as well. And of course, certainly last but never to be least, my one and only brother, His Grace. I call him Deuce. Y'all call him Bishop. My brother, Reginald Boyce II. We have to get some noise like people are clapping, like, hey. Hi, Deuce.
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Good. So, Mama, what you doing over there? My mother's making corn for everybody. And let me just say this, where we are known, my dad is a bishop and my brother's a bishop in the church world, and we are very serious about our relationship and loving on and helping those to come into Christ. I want you to know that we are a regular family that loves to have a good time. We laugh, we joke. We have lots of stories to tell. But I wanted to talk about tonight, and I felt that it would be befitting to bring my family on because of the topic of conversation tonight, the importance and the necessity of family conversations. And this is around, and please don't tap out on me when I go this deep into it, but please just give us a moment to hear me out. This is a conversation about having the family conversation if something was to happen to you. We know that death is real. And I always say the reality of death is that death is a reality. And where our desire is to be caught up, we want to also be realistic and have our business in order, so that when God does call our name, our family isn't suffering behind our death. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit tonight. I don't want to go deep into one of the reasons why we all got together. Hi, Ma. You see me because we see you. Say hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm having these conversations about what do you want, right? Because a lot of times people will pass, and there was never a conversation with their family about what their wishes are for when they close their eyes. And I thought it was so necessary. I've been to lots of funerals, and there's been times where the family was prepared. There was conversation that taken place. And then a lot of times the family is preparing for this funeral, for this memorial service, not really knowing what the family members' wishes was. And I do understand that death is
yes.
Some people get a little scared. We can hear you. What's happening?
She'll be all right.
where people are not knowing what the person wants for the funeral or for the wake services. And when I say what they want, I'm talking from the beginning to the end. What I want to put on, who I want to speak, things of that nature. So not too long ago, my family got together. What's happening? My family got together and we sat at the table and had a conversation about what you would want or what do you want when you close your eyes, when God calls your name. And believe it or not, hey, everybody coming in, believe it or not, this is a subject that shouldn't happen just one time. This subject should not be talked about on a regular basis, but you always want to revisit the conversation based on life circumstances. Okay. So at one time, things were a certain way based on the fact that I was married. And so now I'm not married. So things have to change, or my desires and wishes do change. So we had a conversation sitting at the table and we talked about what everybody wanted. So for all of you who are watching tonight, my mother doesn't do a lot of conversation about the death. She doesn't do a lot of conversation. Neither does my brother really. But we sat and had a conversation about it. And Dad, is it okay if I share your wishes? And so my dad has been in ministry for a long time, and he is a bishop in the Lord's church. There is certain pomp and circumstance that goes along with that. You may hear of bishops laying in state for certain days and being taken to, what do you call it, in the wall, maybe, not necessarily in the ground, of this different things. So we had this conversation, and my father told us something different. Now, Deuce, were you kind of surprised when we had this conversation and Daddy told us his wishes? I think this was about a year or 2 years ago, correct?
Yeah, I was very surprised, actually. I understand it, but it did take me by surprise.
Yeah. So we were talking about, hi, Andrea. We were talking about, hi, Samantha, all the way from Florida. We were talking about what we would want. And we were talking about funeral arrangements and funeral service. And Dad, what did you say? You want what?
My desire to be cremated.
Cremated.
Yes.
And so
taken to the ocean and just
sprinkle your ashes around.
That's right.
So when my dad said that, at first I was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Hey, Chandra, what do you mean cremated? We're, thinking not that we were planning for him to pass, but I'm in the back of my head of, well, we're going to do a funeral services, where we're going to have it at. He's going to lay in state. We're going to have him in his garb. After that, we're going to fly him somewhere else, and we're going to have a service there. And he says he wants cremation. I'm grateful for that conversation because my dad suffered 2 strokes and he's had heart surgery. And what if we would have done what we thought he would have wanted, not necessarily what he would have wanted? And that's kind of sort of doing the person an injustice, where we're making decisions for people instead of allowing them to make the decision on their own. So, Deuce, how important do you think it is for families to actually sit and have this dialogue?
It's extremely important, right? I think that if you know or you have an idea of what you want as your final arrangements, I think it's very important to have that conversation. But for those having the conversation, although you may not agree with that person's wishes, it is extremely important that you honor their memory by giving them realistically, right? If it's realistic, by honoring their wishes. That's how you celebrate their life, by honoring the requests that they've made. I don't want to be cremated, but if that's what Dad wants, then we honor his requests.
Yeah. It's weird. It was definitely weird. It was definitely something that took us back when he made the comment. But as I said, I'm grateful that we know, because we ultimately want to give him what he desires. Of course, he's not going to be here to be upset with us, right? But
Come back.
well, so I'm going to ask you now: do not, under any circumstances, come back. Okay. But we want to respect the wishes and to make sure that we do what's right for that person. It is ultimately very important that this conversation takes place. Very important that you sit your family members down and discuss what you want. Okay. My family knows I don't want to be cremated. Put me in a wall. Okay. My family also knows now I have title in church, and normally they put you in the robe and you lay on state, and my family knows to put me in a colors. I'm bright, I'm vibrant, and I want the last time that anybody is to see me, or the last time that casket is open, I want to look like me. So for me, it's very bright colors. Please make sure that my nails are done. Please make sure that my hair is done. Please make sure that I have makeup on. And please make sure that we get the extra hairs that try to seep in, because I don't want to be in a casket looking like somebody else, right? I want people to be able to recognize me. That means she wore makeup, put her in makeup. So that's one of the conversations that we had. And I want to encourage you all to sit and have the conversation. It's not wishing that anything would happen, but we want to be very mindful that we're doing everything, in decency and order. And that means as much as we plan for vacations, as much as we plan for certain furniture or, a new wardrobe, we need to be very mindful to do that planning for our death as well. It is not the responsibility of the family to have to figure out how to pay for your funeral. If you have insurance while you're living, you should have insurance so that if you close your eyes, your family will be taken care of. And this is one of the areas that I want to get into with my brother, because he's very knowledgeable in this area. Because people tend to think that, I think that people don't think about everything that comes with death. So it's not you just closing your eyes, but if you have a job, the job has to be notified. If you have insurance on your job, someone has to be able to call and get information for what you had. Beneficiaries is very important. Bishop, let's talk about that, because I think that some people, when they're onboarding on a job and they give you the option to say whether you want life insurance and health insurance, and then in the life insurance part, it specifies beneficiaries. And I think that sometimes people don't think about how important to list someone there. Let's talk about that for a minute, about beneficiaries and how important it is to have someone trustworthy on your plans, your insurance policies.
So it ties back into what you were just talking about, right? You want your wishes to be known to your family. Sadly, my family has told me no to all the things I wanted.
Let's talk about that for a minute.
I told my family I wanted to be buried in one of those clear cases where I can stand up and they could just put me at the back of the church and I'll just see the people as they come into church every Sunday. So they told me no to that.
No, absolutely not.
But more importantly, I mean, when I say realistically, I mean, you have wishes that are realistic, right? But telling your family is hearsay in the court of law. Mm-hmm. That is called hearsay. That is you telling the judge what someone else said. And you may have one version, somebody else may have a version. It is important to have a will. 68% of Americans do not have a will. 78% of those are millennials, right? And millennials are now having children. What happens to your child if you have no plans for them?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Then, if you have minor children, it is important that if you have life insurance policies, that you don't put your child down as a beneficiary,
Mm-hmm.
because then that locks the policy until that child becomes of legal age.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to have somebody who is trustworthy, who is dependable, that is going to execute your wishes if you have a life insurance policy. So now let's just take that for a minute. If you have a $100,000 life insurance policy and it is for your children, it is important that you first have a document that says, these are for my children, especially if you are not sure that the person is going to do exactly what you've asked, right?
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, you cannot have a beneficiary that, um, in addition to not being trustworthy, is not in a position to help guide your children or your loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to be, this ain't church, so I can, talk. If their life is shabby
Mm-hmm.
and they're not taking care of their business,
Mm-hmm.
why would you leave your children or your loved ones in the care of someone who has not taken care of their business the right way,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you want to pick somebody who is trustworthy, who is dependable, who is knowledgeable, who has integrity,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because when we talk about minor children, and we're looking at minors, right? It could be seniors, it could be a loved one, it could be anyone that is in your care. But when you look at your minor children, you not only need to have someone dependable as a beneficiary, but someone who's going to be dependable as a guardian.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because you can say, well, if you're married, God forbid anything happens to me, your spouse would take the children. That's not always the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens if, God forbid, something happens to both of you at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
If there's a car accident that claims both of your lives, where does your children go?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then you say, oh, well, my mother will take the kids. That's nice. He has a mother too. So now the two mothers are fighting over these children. And what happens to the child as these two sides are fighting? They
Right.
put them in the foster care system.
Right.
And anyone who knows what the foster care system is, I've spoken to many people who say foster care system, while a good premise, there's some bad families.
Mm-hmm.
And they may not feed the children or do right by the children's money. So it's very, very important that you have life insurance. If you don't have life insurance, get some life insurance. The federal government, during the time of COVID, made a provision where you can get, I think it's $50,000 worth of life insurance, and it's not a lot. But we had hundreds of thousands of Americans and other nationalities dying around the world, and they needed to make it where families could afford to bury their loved ones should something happen. So it's very important that we plan, we prepare,
Mm-hmm.
and then we make people aware, excuse me, of where these documents are being held, right? Your bank account, where do you bank at,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because the last thing you want to do is, something happened to you and your family don't know what banks you bank at. Now, I'm not telling you to give them their account numbers,
Mm-hmm.
but they do need to know at least what banks you bank at. My
Mm-hmm.
nephew Christian, I sit him down and make sure that he understands what banks I bank with, so
Mm-hmm.
that everybody knows,
Mm-hmm.
at least what banks to go to with a death certificate saying, hey, there are beneficiaries on all of my accounts. So, you got to make sure that even at the bank, you have beneficiaries.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's necessary and important. And I liked when you touched about the children, because I think sometimes we don't think that far, right? At first, I think that sometimes we feel, hi, Aquisha, sometimes we feel that we're always going to be here. And we always want to have faith that God will preserve us. But again, realistically, we need to plan for when we close our eyes, period. But we have to be mindful, as Du says, as my brother said, about who we choose. Don't assume that your husband or that your wife is going to remain to take care of your kids. And then don't assume, well, my mother just come and take care of them. Well, if he has family as my brother said. Now you have your family and his family fighting over the children, and the children are already now having to deal with your death. Now they have to deal with the anger and frustration of the two sides of the family that are fighting for custody. Also, as you're making sure and praying about who you have as your beneficiary or who you want to take your children, please, as my brother said, make sure that they have integrity, their character is upstanding, that they understand the concept of raising a child, they understand the concepts of loving and caring for and protecting. Please don't write down in your will that you want your aunt to take care of your kids and you don't even have a good relationship with your aunt. Be mindful of even things of that nature, because people that may smile in your face now may hurt your kids later on. So we want to be mindful of who's on the beneficiary. And even when it comes down to your house, everything that you have, it needs to be a line in the will that specifies where you want it to go or who you want it to go to. We have some stories that we can talk about of family members asking family members not to sign documents because they want all of the money. Or we have family members running to the bank trying to get the money out before the other family members can go. One thing I always say is that we're going to realize who people are: two events, a wedding and a funeral. People are going to show who they are at one of the two or at both. Either a wedding, people will come out the woodworks, or a funeral. Everybody was related. Oh, I had a conversation with him. He told me he wanted me to have his fur coat. Oh, he told me he wanted to do this and he wanted to do that. Enough. We need to be educated in this space. Mom and Dad, I know that y'all have a will. How often, from when you guys first got the will till now, how many times did you change it or adjust it?
I think 3. Each time a major event happened is when you need to adjust it.
Right, maybe 2 or 3 times.
When we sold the house, we had to update it. When we did the next thing, we bought a new house, you had to update it because there was new occurrences in our lives.
And then your great-grandchild.
And then when my great-grandchild came along,
we have
to change it for him now.
Right. You have to change it for him now. So it's important. And Bishop, I know that for you, I don't know if you have a specific will for yourself and then a different will for the church, or do you
all in one?
All that?
It's all in one.
Talk to us.
So my will is a little, will is a little different. It's a little complicated, right? So I believe in having insurance, right? But I don't believe in making my family wait to be able to bury me, right? So my burial expenses are in one account, right? So anything happens to me, you can go to that account and withdraw and pay my funeral expenses. But my will, in the first part of my will, it establishes hope. It establishes that there should not be more than 60 days without a pastor being put into that seat, even if it's an interim position, right? My will stipulates that if my father, if I precede him, then he has the final say on the next leader. But if God forbid he's not around, then I have names in my will of people who are to decide who the next pastor will be, with criteria. They have to be in good standing as a member of the church. They have to be faithful as a member of the church, right? And then I've appointed somebody from outside of the ministry that could come and help shepherd the people to make sure that the next leader is not a hireling, right? My will also then states that 10% of my estate goes to the ministry, and it tells what it's for, right? If I tithed in life, I want to tithe in my passing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're helping to maintain your church, especially if you have a church that is of integrity.
Right.
You can see where your money's going with your ministry, then support it even in death, right? My will says that my retirement account is to maintain my home after my passing, right? It that the monies from there will take care of the home and the mortgage should there be one. Hopefully, it won't be one.
Right.
But it gives very specific instructions, even down to where I'm buried. Right? I want to be buried with my brother at Pine Lawn Cemetery. It tells what I want to have on me. It's very, very detailed, and it's important that because that's your final document. It's your last will and testament, right? It's your last requests and what you want to happen with your items, even down to the smallest things, your jewelry, your fur coats, your sweaters, your shoes. Now, if them shoes ain't good, don't put them in your will. Just tell your family throw them out, right? Don't go give those to give those to Goodwill. But
Right.
if you have, and we have people who do this, and I'm not knocking it, but if you've gone out and spent $1,000 on a pair of shoes, A, why, but B, make sure that in your last will you've put that in your last will and testament. The major cause of people not having a will is procrastination.
Procrastination.
That is the one reason why people do not have a will. 42% of Americans have not created a will because they're procrastinating. And then you have another percentage that don't want to deal with the topic of death, right? We can't be so religious and so faithful in our belief that we don't believe the word of God when it says that we, except the rapture come, we'll all pass that way. Right now, yes, we want to be translated. We want to be caught up to meet him, and that's great. Prepare for that, but also prepare to go the other way, right? So, as I said earlier, 78% of millennials, 64% of Gen Xers, none of these people have wills, but you have children.
And
right?
that's the part that they're not thinking about. It's for those who will remain after you close your eyes. You want to make provision for them. Now, even if you have to make provision where if you don't want to give your children everything at one moment, you got to specify that information.
Right.
What about businesses? Should that be a separate will or should that be included with your will?
Be included.
So it can be included as long as you are the majority stakeholder in that business. If you are not, then you cannot will something you don't have absolute control over. So if you have a home, you can, let's say you are married and the two of you are on the mortgage or two of you are owning anything, you can only pass along your 50%. You cannot say, I want to give this house to someone else because only 50% of that home belongs to you. I would have, if it's your own, you can have, in your will. But if it's not 100% yours, you have to create something else. But that leads me to this, and I know this ain't part of the conversation, but it is part of the conversation. For every leader, whether it's a business, a ministry, or any, you need to have a transition plan to make sure that if you are a pastor, bishop, a prelate, an overseer, that the people God has given you charge over don't fall into hands of someone who is not going to carry out the vision the way God gave it to you, right? You do not want the people to scatter and leave because they see no apparent leader, right? And so what happens is that gives way to hirelings to come to bring dissension so they can start something of their own, right? And with everyone looking for these platforms these days, you want to make sure that they have someone that they can look to at a moment where you've passed on and the people are looking for a leader to lead them through that grief period, that moment of transition, that uncertainty. And what they need at that time is not voices. They need one voice that's going to sound like the leader they served. Right? And so it's very important that you don't transition your ministry into the hands of someone your people are not familiar with.
Right.
You've got to transition them with a plan. This is what the plan is. This is who my set man or woman will be if anything happens to me, and it should be made known to the people while you live.
Yes.
So there's no question. I think you mentioned it earlier. Oh, he would have wanted me to be the leader. Oh, I talked to him and he told me I was going to be the next leader. That document that you signed that says, here's the new leader. If anything happens to me, this is the person, this is my heir, should be made known to the people so that the moment you close your eyes, they now look to the new leader, right? In English, anybody who knows me knows I love the English history and I love all of the pomp and circumstance that do. The moment the queen died, not during the coronation, not the next day, the moment she died, Charles became king. But they knew that because the transition had already been solidified. Okay?
Conversation was had.
The conversation was had. The laws were there. Everything was on pen and paper. There was no question whether who was going to be the next leader, right? Everyone knew. And pastors, we cannot hold that position. Excuse me for saying this. You cannot hold that position dangling it in front of people as a way to keep them in your ministry, right? Make your election, as the old folks used to say, make your election sure. Make sure that your people know that you have a transition plan. And if anything happens to you, here's the new leader.
Even in entrepreneurship, I think that it's important as well that you know where your product is going. You know who's going to take over your business.
Yeah.
You have the plan of where, the next 5 years, where you want the business to go. So it's not just for family. It's not just for pastors, but it's also for entrepreneurs, because ultimately, if you don't write down what you want, your family going to come in. They're going to sell all your stuff. Okay. They probably won't even tell your customers or your clients that something happened. So you want to know, this is for everyone. It's about the importance and the necessity of having a conversation about your transition, about you leaving here, making sure that your business is in order. That's not just for family members, but that's also for leaders. That's also for entrepreneurs, that those conversations need to take place. Please don't assume that somebody's going to do right by you because they share the same last name as you. That was a rhyme. That was a whole word, though. Please be careful that you don't think just because the same blood running in your veins runs in theirs, that they're going to do right by you or by your children. Like, this is such an important topic. And I'm hoping and praying that as those of you who are watching, that you would share this with your loved ones and your friends. Forget who's talking. It's more about the message, because we've seen so many people fighting in family court, fighting in probate court, trying to get this, trying to figure out how much money they can get for burial. Now, my mom used to work for Social Security, and Mom, how much did they give people when they passed? For
$255, and it has to be a relative.
A dependent relative, right?
No, it has to be a husband, wife, minor child. Husband.
That's not enough to buy a flower.
No, it's not.
It's still the same.
And it's
after
still the
10
same.
years.
Yeah. That's not $255 is not enough to buy a flower.
At all. And guess what? At one time, cremation was expensive. At one time, it was $5,000-$6,000. Now it's like $15,000-$17,000. You have to rent the casket, still got to rent the place. You got to do all of that. Well, if you spend $10,000 just for your cremation, or $15,000 for your cremation, and you only had $20,000, then your family's only left with $5,000. And if you have any bills, now about bills, there are certain bills that they will go to the next of kin to receive, and then some bills go away.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So they're going to come to the next of kin for bills.
Certain bills.
Certain bills.
Medical bills go away, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not student loans.
Student loans is the only one I can think of that's going to follow you, but everything else, it's your bill. You can't assume that someone else is going to pay it. So
and liens don't go away.
Liens don't go away.
Liens don't go away. So if you have, when you sign your student loans, and those who have them understand, those don't go away. It's like the plague.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you, God forbid, God call you home tomorrow, those student loans will mourn your death and show up the next day to whoever your executor is, to make sure that those are paid. And, you know, I hear people saying that Biden got rid of student loans.
No, he didn't.
Not, you know, there are some people who still have student loans. There may be some that he got rid of. He only has the power to get rid of federal. But if you have anything else, those student loans don't go away. And any liens that are on any of your property, straighten out your business, right? Don't know that there's a lien on your home and you don't fix that, because now your children can't sell that house until they take care of the liens, right? And that's hard, especially if the house is in your name and they're trying to fight to get the liens off because the bank won't talk to them, because your power of attorney, if you had one, died when you did. And so you can't speak on the behalf of someone who's dead, even with a power of attorney. So now you got to go to court. You got to get the power to talk on their behalf now that they're deceased. You got to get their records open. And it's costly, right? So handle your business. Stop procrastinating. It will not go away.
It will not go away. Either you're going to handle it, or the other part of that is leaving your family to now suffer to try to figure out how we're going to bury you, where we're going to get the money from, even if it's cremation, where we getting this money from, how we putting this together, because later on in the month, I'm going to try to do a conversation with one of the funeral directors that we work with. And actually, I know more than one funeral director, and I may want them to come on just to talk to everybody about what all comes with that, what all is required, so that you know what you may be putting your family into if you don't handle your business. Now I'll put the shameless plug out there, and I'm pushing him to do this, but I don't know where he's going to find the time. My brother is very knowledgeable when it comes to beneficiaries, wills, what information should go on there, you know, how you put it together for a nice fee. This is not free information for him. You can reach out to him, House of Sinclair on Facebook. But you can reach out to him if you need some assistance. Now, please, let me say this. Please do not reach out to him by phone in reference to this House of Sinclair. It's a page on Facebook. You can go and message him, and someone will get back to you with information pertaining to that, okay? Please have your business in order. He's not going to assist you with trying to figure out what you may want. So you need to have all that down, all that written down, everything that you own, everything that's yours, your kids, their names, their ages, what you have in your name, whether it be a car note, insurance, where it's at, the banking information. You need to have all of that information, and he can assist you with getting that done. This is basically to help people. We want to do our part in educating and empowering families, not just to have relationship, but to have healthy heart conversations about things that are realistic, about life, about how are you feeling today? Are you okay? Are you overwhelmed? Are you depressed or oppressed? If we start having these conversations as family, I think it'll be easier for us to talk about the death conversation. It'll be easier for us to talk about, whatever we got going on, whether I'm stressed out about something at work or whether I got an issue in my relationship. And it has to be an opportunity for no judgment. When you come to this table, it's not to listen to judge, it's to listen to understand so that you can execute their wishes, or you can make sure that you're there for them in their time of need, where you could be effective in helping them. So this is the importance of family conversations. So everybody doesn't have the same family set up, but whatever you have, however you have your family set up, it's important that you have conversations with them, even to your teenage kids, because we leave the kids out of conversations. And then when something happens, they're trying to figure out what's going on, because it was never conversation about, I may not always be here. And I tell my children this, I may not always be here, but if something should happen to me, this is what you need to do. This is who you need to call. This is who's on this information. This is who's going to do this, so that they're aware. And I won't leave back a tarnished legacy because I didn't do my part as a mother to inform, empower, and educate my children about what life really is. Because ultimately, life and death both are reality. People are going to have kids and people are going to close their eyes. So I think it's very important that we start sitting down Sundays after church, sit down and just start having some type of conversation while you're having dinner. Cell phones should be out of the option. When we come together, my mother has a fit about the cell phones. Okay, right there.
Oh yeah. Yep.
But also, if you know that there's a troublemaker in your family, if you know there is somebody that's going to stir up stuff,
messy,
make sure you have provision in your will that will trump their messiness. And everybody has that one family member who will start foolishness, right? And that one then goes to recruit others to form an alliance, right? If you know they're not going to do the right thing, don't put them in charge.
Please don't do that.
If you know they're not going to take care of the rest of the family, don't leave them as your executor. And then you got to understand, in certain areas, when you have a will, make sure that the executive of your will understands that everything gets split evenly. Because legally, an executor is eligible to get 10% of the entire estate. Right? So in your will, you got to say, my executor does not profit from my will. They only serve my wishes, right? I have something in my will that I know my family's not going to fight over anything, because it's not like I have that $1 billion yet to leave them. But my will clearly states that if anyone contests my will, they are automatically not to receive anything from my estate.
But who would contest your will?
I don't know. I don't know. It could be, and it also makes stipulations, right? It says this will makes no provision for, and it names names, right? And then it also says this will makes no provision for anyone that comes up to claim we were in a relationship, we were secretly married. It makes you get nothing, not a dime, right? But you got to make sure that you don't leave it to the child that's going to curse everybody out and take your money and spend it. And you just don't want. You want to be careful, very, very careful.
Right.
But with these young children, grandparents have to step up sometime and get insurance for these babies. If the parents can't.
Or the parents.
None of us want a GoFundMe at a church. We don't do that.
We don't do that.
That's not the way to do things.
That's poor living. GoFundMe, unless there's a situation where that person is totally unable to get insurance, which would mean they have some type of a condition already. Everybody should have.
If there's a minor child,
Even
right? because most people don't think about getting life insurance for minors.
Mm-hmm.
I will help in a GoFundMe for a minor.
Mm-hmm.
But if you got on Jordans and you got on Gucci belts and you got Louis Vuitton luggage and you have no life insurance, then that was poor planning. When you fail to plan, when you fail to plan, what is it? Poor planning.
Plan to fail.
Right. If you don't plan ahead, you plan to fail.
Mm-hmm.
So don't put $1,000 on your feet and then your family has to do a GoFundMe. Now, I understand there are some emergencies or some people who have issues where, GoFundMe was a surprise, the death was a shock. Okay, I got that, right? Shock, or you were between jobs and you can't rely on your job insurance because the job may close, right? So you got to have a second thing. So in an emergency, okay. But you can't tell me you got 15 pairs of Jordans and you don't have $10,000 in life insurance, right? You can't tell me you have a complete set of Louis Vuitton purses, shoes, hats, 3 fur coats, and mink hats, church suits, and you have no life insurance, right? One of the worst things I've ever heard, and I know we're coming close, but one of the worst things, that a young lady came to visit our church, and she had a full-length mink coat on, and she was telling somebody about what she had on. She had Manolo Blahnik shoes. She had a St. John suit. I'll never forget it. She said St. John suit. She had bought this hat for church. It was $500, and she had on a full-length mink coat. And she asked somebody, "Is there anybody going down towards Marcy Project?" You have on a full-length mink coat, and
Not a car.
and you don't have your priorities were wrong.
Priority.
St. John suits can cost you $1,200, $1,300, $1,400, $1,500, and you have no life insurance. And now you've put your family at the embarrassing thing of either receiving, doing a GoFundMe, or receiving an offering
Right.
at your funeral.
Right.
Now, if you have to, we shouldn't have to. We should plan now. Don't let your children remember the last thing they saw at your homegoing service was the offering plates coming out and somebody raffling off to make sure they get enough to bury you. Plan today. I like going out to eat. I do, because that means they cook, they clean, they do it all. I don't have to do anything when I come home. My kitchen's clean. However, if it were a choice between me going out to eat and making sure that my family's provided for, I'd have to skip some of them out to eat, right? Because my legacy, or what people remember me by, will be the lasting memory in everybody. That's what they will talk about. That's what they will say, about you. Dressed up. You was always dressed up.
He have no insurance.
But he have no insurance. That's what they're going to get you for the rest of your life.
His family had to figure it out because he just wanted to be a procrastinator, or because he thought that his time wasn't coming.
Yeah.
One thing we do not know is when God is going to call his name. What we need to do, because we don't know, is make sure that our business is in order. If you even want to do it for you, do it for the children that you created, or do it for the parents that you have.
Right.
No one should have to deal with or try to now figure out what we should do in this instant. I saw something on Facebook today, and I actually mentioned this as we're coming to a close. I mentioned to the person that I was doing this live tonight, but the post was about having security at his funeral. This is another thing that I want to say. Be careful of connections. This new thing that has been going on for the last couple of years is called entitlement. That people feel like because they know you or they were friends with you, that they know what they want. So now they'll go to the family and tell the family, no, they told me that they wanted me to do this and me to do that, and they did this and they want this and they did that. Be very careful. Be very careful of those who don't speak to you. And I know that there's not too much we could do now, but you don't speak to me in life, but in death, you want to celebrate me. Very weird. That's a very weird situation for me. So the person said on Facebook that he wants security because he just doesn't want certain people to be there. And I have said,
invitation only.
I was waiting.
Okay.
I was waiting for you to say that.
I told my family I want an invitation only funeral.
Okay.
I don't want everybody up there.
Nice.
I don't want no talking. Y'all come in, sing 2 songs, get a good scripture. Somebody leave one more, and have a good praise break and take me out to Pine Lawn.
Even when it comes to your funeral arrangements, who you want to speak is important, because if your family are non-believers, they're gonna have somebody to get up, and it won't be a eulogy. It'll just be somebody preaching to the folks. And ultimately, you want someone to eulogize you, talk about the good, talk about you, or the bad. But you want somebody to be effective, even in the last closing statements that somebody can say. You want your choice. I don't want my parents to have to figure out who I want to speak at my funeral. I want them to already know.
We know.
I want them to know this information so that when I do close my eyes, they can have their moment to grieve and not a moment to worry, now be concerned, got to fight, got to figure things out. They can actually have a moment to properly grieve, because there is a thing called healthy grieving. And I think that a lot of people don't have the opportunity to grieve, one, and then to grieve healthy because of all the work they got to do because somebody didn't take care of their business. So now their grieving process is hold, right? And we know that when you fester emotions or situations in, it got to come out some way. So you mad every day, all day, your life is not what you want it to be. Now your life is turned. You have an attitude all of the time because you didn't have an opportunity to properly grieve whoever it is that passed because of all of the issues and the things that you chose not to do while you were living. Right? So, Mom and Dad, what would you give in your final words to those who are watching in reference to the importance and the necessity of family conversations?
As a husband, as a father, I would encourage each of you to make sure that your family is knowledgeable as to what you want in the last days, to make sure that you have saved or put away, whether it be insurance or just finances, for your burial. Don't put the burden on them. It's your responsibility.
I think writing it down. Each year, Hope has a seminar, and during that seminar, there is a form that we can give you that specifies everything. Who you want to sing, who you want to pray, where you want to go, how you want to go. We went to a funeral and the person had did this, and the son got up and says, I make no apologies because this is what my mother wanted. So if you were not on the program, it's because she didn't want you on the program. So I think that make your wishes known, write them down, who you want to speak for you, what songs you want to sing, and get some kind of insurance. Protect your family.
Protect your family. I like that, Mom. Protect your
family. And have conversations with them. You got to be able to talk to them, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. You need to talk. Conversations are important.
They are important. They are important. And Deuce, what's your last?
I think it is very important that we stop avoiding the discussion or the topic of death. And I don't like the talk of death. I don't like going to funerals. I don't like the whole, thing. But, the truth of the matter is we've got to go that way. And I think that what we need now is to spend time with our families, making sure they are okay. They're okay with understanding what you want. I have been very thorough, even to after my burial, what's to happen. Right? My family, I said, when you drop me off at the funeral home, at the grave site, at the cemetery, make sure that in the back of that limousine is your luggage.
Mhm.
Leave the cemetery. No repass. No repass.
Mhm.
Y'all eating chicken, and my family got to go to the buffalo wing place. No way. No repass.
Mhm.
Take that and fly somewhere.
Mhm.
But that's because I prepared. I've got life insurance, so I've prepared for my family in life and death. And so, people of God, people in general, please, ma'am, please, sir, make sure that you have everything. I don't care if you're 25 or 45.
Mhm.
People have died, as the old folks used to say, people are dying now
That's
that
never
ain't
done.
never died before. So please arm yourself with information. If you need help, we're here to help you, but please get yourself together so that you can live comfortably knowing that your family's protected if anything happens to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Deuce. Thanks, Mommy and Daddy, for joining me. We're going to finish these conversations in reference to death in our next week on Monday. We're going to still talk about this. We're going to do a couple of episodes about this because I think it's important and I think it's necessary for people to understand what comes with death. I think it's important for people to understand that death is coming. The scripture tells us that there's a season to live and there's a season to die, which means we all have to close our eyes. But we want to make sure that we do what's necessary for those that we say that we love now instead of waiting. Procrastination is a thief.
Mm-hmm.
It's always been.
It is a thief.
Mm-hmm.
It robs us of so much that we can never get back. So I encourage you all today, if you have to, go back and watch the live, send the live out to your friends and your family, because this is necessary. And, I'm always on the realistic side. I don't want to talk about something that don't make sense. It got to make sense for me. And this is one topic, especially now, because we see so many people passing away. Just last week, it's 4 or 5 people in 1 week. And I don't know the family situation, but it's my prayer that that person made sure that their family was taken care of in them passing. So I appreciate you, Mommy and Daddy, for coming on and joining me again today. Thank you, Deuce. Wow. Thank you, Deuce, for joining me and giving your expertise and all of the information that you have and what you're doing and what you can offer. Again, if anyone needs assistance for a fee, do not text or call his phone because you will not be answered. We want to do things in decency and order because he does have a full-time job, church, and a whole fellowship, okay? So if you need assistance with preparing yourself for your will, information about beneficiaries, information about your children and what you need to do and how you need to do it, you can go to House of St. Clair. It's a Facebook page. You can message the page and the admin will get back to you in reference to meeting with my brother to just give you some information. He can help you in consultation of what you need to do and how you need to do it. And if your situation is far above what he can do, he has connections that he can send you to lawyers or other information. Actually, the House of St. Clair was tagged in. Yes, thanks, Nate. It was tagged. So you could jump over to that page I'm going to say it again, send a message of inquiry of what you're looking for, what you need assistance. While you're waiting for somebody to respond, please make sure that you have all of the information that you need so that it would speed up your process. It will speed up your process so that you can have this information on hand. Old days, they said, tomorrow's not promised. Jeauninè always says today is not promised, which means when we get off this call, we don't know if it's the day that God has chosen to call our names. So we want to make sure that we're ready, not just ready because we just ready, but ready in our finances, ready in our family dynamics, what we leave to them, what they have, all of that information is very important. We're going to again finish these conversations coming up this month. I do want to talk about healthy grieving. That's important and necessary. But I think that there will not be any healthy grieving if you have to figure out first how you're going to lay your loved ones to rest. So again, thank you to my family for joining us. Heart Conversations one more time. I appreciate you. Thank you all for watching tonight. I really appreciate it. Please share the live to your friends and family. Let them know, listen, there's some information we need to talk about. If you don't know what it is, I'm going to send you this live so that you can hear this information, understand the importance of it, and you can execute what you need to execute. Thank you all again. I love you so much. It's not how you love me that affects my life, but it's how I love you that affects my life. So I love you. Please
love you back.
All that you have to maintain a healthy heart with Heart Conversations. See you next week, Monday, 7 p.m. live, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
God bless. Love you.
Good night.